This is a download from BBC Learning English. To find out more, visit our website.
6 Minute English
From bbclearningenglish.com.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Alice.
And I'm Neil. I'm feeling a bit chilly today, Alice.
Yes, it is unseasonably cold today, which means not normal for the time of year. But the weather is very unpredictable these days.
I know what you mean.
Global warming is the subject of today's show.
Is global warming really something to worry about? Some people say that the Earth has warmed up in the past and nothing terrible's happened.
The Earth has warmed up before, but this was the result of things like wobbles in the Earth's orbit, not because of an increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere.
Can we reverse the changes?
No, it's too late. And now we have to find ways to adapt to extreme weather, rising sea levels and melting polar ice caps. However, we can mitigate greenhouse gas emissions or make them less harmful. But before we talk more about this, I have a question for you. How much has the average temperature of the Earth's surface increased in the last 100 years? Is it A, 0.85 degrees Celsius, B, 1.85 degrees Celsius, or C, 8.5 degrees Celsius?
I'm going to go for the big one. 8.5.
Well, we'll find out if you got the answer right later on, Neil. But first, do you know any ways to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions?
I do, actually. An Argentinian company has started collecting cow emissions and converting them into usable energy.
Well, as the world eats more meat, methane emissions from livestock are actually becoming a bigger climate concern.
And 1 day's worth of cow emissions provides energy to run a car for 24 hours.
OK, moving on now. So the world is going to have to adapt to global warming since we can't turn back the clock on climate change. And rich countries have the resources to do this, whilst poorer countries don't. Let's hear from Salim Ul-Huq, Director of the International Centre for Climate Change and Development in Bangladesh, talking about how this problem is being addressed.
The rich countries have already pledged and promised $100 billion a year, starting from 2020, to cover all kinds of climate change activities, which in climate change jargon we call either mitigation or adaptation.
A year? I mean, that's an enormous sum of money.
Not that enormous compared to what they gave to the banking system when it collapsed. Climate change is a much bigger problem than the banking crisis.
Salim Ul-Huq interviewed on the BBC World Service programme NewsHour Extra. Well, he says rich countries have pledged, or promised, to deliver $100 billion a year to help poorer countries adapt to climate change. However, he suggests that this sum could have been larger, since more money than this was donated to resolve the banking crisis.
For example, after the devastating effects of Hurricane Sandy, New York City invested $10 billion on storm defences to protect Manhattan and Wall Street.
And where lack of water is a problem, countries like Australia, China and Spain have built desalination plants, which remove the salt from seawater to produce drinking water. But it's too expensive for developing countries to do this, even though they need them.
So, in relative terms, $1 billion a year to help poor countries is a small sum of money when compared to their need. Countries like Bangladesh have developed homegrown technologies, which means produced locally, such as harvesting rainwater from their rooftops.
OK, Alice, and thinking about certain radical proposals for adaptation, did you know there's a Dutch company that wants to build floating cities for us to live in?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Plans include 15-storey high-rise buildings and floating food production.
It sounds like it would be incredibly expensive. Has anyone actually built one?
No, not so far. Let's hear from Mark Maslin, Professor of Climatology at University College London, talking about why this might be.
Remember, we're going to have 9.5 billion people by the middle of this century. Now, if you think about it, think about the logistics of building a city floating for, say, 10 million people, and then multiply that up to 60% of 9.5 billion people. Okay, so don't think it's really cost efficient.
So, in practical terms, the logistics of building a large floating city probably wouldn't work. It wouldn't be cost efficient or good value for the money you paid.
And logistics means the organisation of a complex activity.
On the other hand, the logistics of teaching farmers in Bangladesh to breed ducks instead of chickens, for example, would be relatively simple and cost-efficient. And since ducks float and chickens don't, it's a sensible adaptation to climate change.
That's a great example, Neil. Now, I think it's time for the answer to today's quiz question. I asked, how much has the average temperature of the Earth's surface increased in the last 100 years? Is it A, 0.85 degrees Celsius, B, 1.85 degrees Celsius, or C, 8.5 degrees Celsius?
And I said 8.5 degrees Celsius, and I know I'm wrong.
Well, yes, I'm afraid you are, Neil. The right answer is actually 0.85 degrees Celsius. And did you know that 13 of the 14 warmest years were recorded in the 21st century?
I did not know that, Alice, but I do know which words we learned today. They are unseasonably, mitigate, pledged, desalination, homegrown, cost-efficient, logistics.
And that's the end of today's 6-Minute English. Don't forget to join us again soon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
6-Minute English.
From the BBC.
This is a download from BBC Learning English. To find out more, visit our website.
6-Minute English.
From bbclearningenglish.com.
Hello and welcome to 6-Minute English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Finn. Hello.
Hello there, Finn. Now, what do you know about robots?
Robots. Well, they talk in a funny way like that.
Yes, you sound quite convincing there, actually, Finn.
You like it?
Yes, I do. Is there anything else you know about robots?
Well, there are a couple of good ones in Star Wars, aren't there?
Oh, yes. R2-D2 and C-3PO. C-3PO talks in quite a human voice.
He does. But, of course, that's science fiction, not real life.
No, but things have moved on in real life. The use of machines to do work that people do, or used to do, is called automation, and that's the subject of today's show.
But before we talk more about this, I'd like you, Neil, to answer today's quiz question. What makes a job more likely to be done by robots? Is it if a job involves A, manipulating small objects, B, working in open spaces, or C, social and emotional skills?
Okay, I got a guess at manipulating small objects, I think.
Interesting. Okay, we'll find out if you're right or wrong later on. Now, 2 UK academics have calculated how susceptible to, that means likely to be affected by, how susceptible to automation each job is based on some key skills. And these include negotiation, persuasion, caring for others, originality and manual dexterity. Now that means being good with your hands.
So do you think intelligent machines could replace us?
Well, maybe you, Neil. Not me. No, I have all the key skills. You know, I'm original, persuasive, of course, very caring and very good with my hands as well.
Well, I'm very glad that you're safe, Finn.
Thank you.
Well, however, a study from Oxford University has suggested that 35% of existing UK jobs are being automated in the next 20 years. Let's listen to Michael Osborne from Oxford University talking about this.
Computers are increasingly able to learn in a way that hitherto has been the reserve of human beings. So in their ability to learn, computers are able to perform a much wider range of tasks than they've been able to do in the past. So as a result, it's not just manual labour that's coming under threat of automation, it's increasingly cognitive labour, the labour of the mind.
Michael Osborne. And cognitive labour means using your noggin. That's using your head. So computers and machines are also using their noggins and getting smarter. And office workers who do repetitive jobs such as drawing up spreadsheets could be replaced with software. But surely jobs like being a doctor or a lawyer are safe, Neil?
Well, some white-collar jobs may be less safe than you think. At one city law firm, junior staff have to read through contracts, assessing them for risks. But now, An artificial intelligence program can do that faster and better.
So white collar refers to a job that you do at an office rather than a factory. And artificial intelligence refers to a computer's ability to copy intelligent human behaviour. Now, let's listen to Matthew Wally from a city law firm to find out what he thinks.
What you're seeing the robot do now, the robot can do in 3 seconds what it would take a group of lawyers days to do. The advantage is that it can do huge volumes, incredibly reliably, in unbelievable times. There's a huge amount of this work to do. Lawyers have far better, higher value legal analysis to worry about.
Well, he thinks that there is work for the lawyers and the computers. In fact, it sounds like a good division of labour. The computers do the boring stuff, and the lawyers do the more interesting work.
Yes. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed that we've got good prospects too. You know, I don't want our listeners to start listening to robot presenters anytime soon.
Indeed, we need... We talk about keeping our fingers crossed when we hope that things are going to turn out in the way we want them to in the future.
That's right. So, shall we hear the answer to today's quiz question? Neil, I asked you, what makes a job more likely to be done by robots? Is it if the job involves A, manipulating small objects, B, working in open spaces, or C, social and emotional skills?
Well, I said A, manipulating small objects, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I've got the right answer.
Okay, you're keeping them crossed?
Yes, I am.
And you got the answer right. Hey, well done.
Brilliant. I'm glad my cognitive skills are still functioning.
Great.
Now, how about hearing those words again?
Okay, the words we heard today were automation, susceptible to, manual dexterity, cognitive labour, noggin, white collar, artificial intelligence, and keeping your fingers crossed.
Well, that brings us to the end of this 6 Minute English. We hope you enjoyed the programme. Please join us again soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
6 Minute English.
From the BBC.